All right, we're here for HIWD 375, Section B01. The course is called Korean and Vietnam Wars, Professor Robert Ritchie. I'm here with Nick Jackson. Thank you so much for being willing to do this today. So I guess I want to start by just asking you, how did you come to be in the military?
I had always wanted to go to sea, and from a very small child, and joining the Navy was something I was always going to do. The fact that we were at war didn't enter into it at all. I wanted to go to sea, so I joined the Navy. That was it.
And so in what capacity did you end up serving?
My father had been a marine engineer, so I went in the marine engineering branch. Good enough for that, it did me too.
Okay, so you were mainly underneath the ship working with the engines and things?
Yeah, my workplace was usually the fire rooms, which used to be called boiler rooms, in the fire rooms and in the engine rooms. But you'd rotate, you'd do different jobs. At one particular time, which we'll probably go into later, I was doing auxiliary watchkeeping, which meant that I traveled around the ship checking on different pieces of machinery like generators and pumps, air conditioners and things like that, and taking readings and moving around the ship. So that was another job.
Okay. And so what did you, as you were out there, what did you understand your mission to be? What were you there to do?
I was there to help the Vietnamese people. I figured if I was a bit of a pacifist, didn't believe in war. But I thought to myself, okay, if somebody came into my home and tried to hurt my family, would I fight? Yes. If somebody came into next door's house and tried to harm them, would I help them? Yes. And I just extended that internationally. And as I saw the Vietnamese people were being taken over by people they didn't want to have take over their country, and I went there to do my best to help. That was it.
So you shared with me a little bit earlier, and you don't have to go into this if you don't want, but you talked about your feeling of, even though you were underneath the deck, you felt kind of complicit in what the guns above, what they were doing. Can you expound a little bit on your thoughts of how you felt about that?
Well, guys, I'd say things like this to the guys on the ship at the time. I must have been a very strange creature to those guys. But I'd say, they'd say, but you're an engineer, you're not involved, you're not killing anybody. And I said, well, say there's a bloke and he's got a shotgun and he's going to go over to an island and kill somebody, and I row the boat. Am I then guilty? It's the same thing. So yeah, I felt guilty about the people we were killing, but then again, they were the bad guys. It doesn't help.
And so, do you think your feelings were shared by your shipmates, or so you felt kind of unique in those thoughts?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was accepted and everything was pretty cool, but I was on my own. I was pretty unique. Yeah.
So everyone else, you think, all your other shipmates, the prevailing thought was more of a nationalistic, gung-ho kind of, we're doing this?
Well, I'd only been in Australia for 4 years, so I didn't really have nationalistic feelings towards Australia. Plus, I was very young at that age too. I was 20 years old, and I was still a kid. I was very young. But yeah, I had interests that my shipmates didn't share. And spirituality was something that you keep to yourself. So, and I was on a bit of a search at that time, so going through all sorts of things. But yeah, I was pretty much on my own. The other guys were there, they're right in doing what they're doing with I mean, it was the best ship in the fleet because of the crew and the previous skippers. Not the one I served under, mind you. That's another story. Yeah.
What did serving in this capacity, serving the war, do to your faith? If I could ask that.
It made me search harder because there had to be an answer. There had to be a way of reconciling what was going on. It couldn't all be bad. There had to be good in there. So yeah, I hunted around a bit. I sort of looked at Buddhism, which I have a great respect for. I even looked at the Baha'is, which was a bit of a mixture. It sent me on a bit of a search. I started reading books like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. I found the Bhagavad Gita had some interesting ideas in there which helped me to get around some of the problems. But it's on the surface, you can say, okay, these people, it was their time to die, and they're moving on in their karmic path or whatever it is, and they'll be better in their next life, something like that. Yeah?
So do you feel like through all this searching, your experience in the war, did it solidify your faith, or did it make it more ambiguous?
No, it didn't. No, it pretty much killed it off. I guess the structure, there was no faith structure in my life. I had been a church member and I'd left. And I lost it for quite a long time, for about 20 years actually, after I got back from Vietnam. I lost that moral compass. It took a long time to get it back.
So you feel like losing that moral compass was a direct relation to your involvement in the war?
Oh yeah.
So when you came back, you found yourself in a place where you kind of felt maybe like you were drifting, and
I was a very different person when I came back to Australia than I was when I left. Interestingly, my mum said she was scared of me. My family said I talked so much about Thailand they all knew I'd come back here. But coming back was difficult. It was very difficult, and at that time also you wouldn't tell anybody that you'd been in the war. You pretty much kept it to yourself. When the Welcome Home march came 17 years after I got back, I wasn't going to go. And I hadn't been in touch with any of my shipmates or any veterans organizations. It just disappeared into the woodwork. Anyway, this friend found me and asked me if I was going, and I said no, that's for the army, they're the heroes, give it to them. He said, well look, it's a chance to catch up with those you haven't seen for 20 years, so why don't you come along? And it was like, oh shit, I better find me medals. And I'd come back from Vietnam and I'd throw, you get the medal comes in a cardboard box, with a cotton wool around it, and you got to send them in to be mounted, get the ribbons put on them so you can wear them. I got back from Vietnam and I threw them in a drawer and I said, I'll never need those. I suddenly had to go find them, get them mounted really quickly, and wore them for the first time in the parade. Shot photographs as I marched. I was working with a newspaper at the time, and that was a pretty significant time actually. I'd been missed. I'd go to shake blokes' hands and they'd pick me up and give me bear hugs and had a lot of jokes. Buried the hatchet with somebody that was pretty much the cause of me leaving the Navy. It was funny. I went up to. I went to one of the reunions. You can cut this out probably. I don't know. Went to one of the reunions after I sort of got back in touch with all the guys, And I saw this bloke, Cliffy Butcher, going to buy a beer. So I went up behind him and I said, I'll buy those, Cliffy, and ordered another schooner. And he said, what's this about, Jack? I said, I'll tell you when we get back. So we got back, we were sitting around a table about this size with all these ex-Hobart guys. And he says, all right, what's this about? I said, well, you might not remember this. I said, but you ran me in one time, which means put me on a charge. You know? I said, you ran me in one time, and everybody laughed. Said, oh, we all took turns at running you in, Jacko. You know, we all had a good laugh. And I found a way to spin it around. And I said, put me on a charge, you know. And it changed my whole outlook. And from then I decided to get out of the Navy because it wasn't for me. And so I got out of the Navy and I became a photographer, and I've had a fantastic life. So cheers, Cliffy. Thanks, buddy. Oh, I had a good laugh, and that was the end of my Cliffy Butcher. Snarl.
How old were you when you got out?
I was 22 when I got out.
So you served 2 years.
I served 3.
3 years.
Yeah.
And you, I mean, I imagine, so it sounds like what you're sharing with me, it sounds like those 2 years had a profound impact on the rest of your life. 3 years had a profound impact on the rest of your life. Did you say that's true?
Yes.
And did you feel like going back and meeting those guys again after 17 years, did you feel like that the same was true for them?
I think it probably impacted them more than me. I know a lot of veterans who you go to their home and there is almost a shrine to their war memories and their ship, or if they're in the army, to their unit and things like that. I've never had any of that. I sort of avoided it all. I talk now on Facebook to old shipmates, and we have a bit of a laugh. And actually, I'd probably talk more to the guys with the new crew. Mind you, there's more of them alive, eh? Yeah, but I think it impacted my life, and it would have impacted theirs even more than mine. I think I'm lucky in that I've had my hobbies and my interests have been an actual therapy. My photography, my singing and my drumming. They're all left side, right side of the brain, sort of stuff. One side of the brain is buggered up from PTSD, but it's the practical side. The creative side is working fine. So I find myself using the creative side a lot.
Okay, so...
Incidentally, can I just say one more thing, just quickly? When you're asking me about how it impacts my life, when I'm talking to you now, I have a very loud hissing in my ears, tinnitus. And that's from the machinery in the ship. When I look back at the videos of the ship, our natural tendency to block out those sounds isn't done on the video. So you get to hear the screaming of the machinery and all the turbines and the engine rooms and the
Did they give you any kind of ear protection?
If they did, we wouldn't use it. Yeah. But I mean, you're walking around the ship, the noises are in the ship. When I went back for her final voyage, I also noticed that some of my favorite places for hanging out and getting photographs were now had red lines around them because of the radiation hazard. So they didn't have anything like that when I was there.
Yeah.
Apparently a lot of DDG sailors have only daughters.
Oh, interesting.
I have 2.
Interesting.
Anyway.
From the exposure to the radiation. Oh. Well, looking back now, is there anything that you would have done differently in terms of the mission and its parameters? That might be a weird question, but do you feel like there was something in the way you guys were carrying out your orders that you would have done it a different way?
I would have tried to be more efficient.
In what way?
I think I would have liked, looking back now, I think the ship and my crew mates deserved better of me than I could give at that time, being very young, very immature. Yeah, that's what I would change. Yeah. I'm a more active crew member.
Okay. 2 more questions. Did you feel that your mission or sense of purpose was fulfilled when you were there? Did you feel fulfilled in your sense of purpose? You said just now, I wish I would have worked harder, but for what you were doing, did you feel like you were contributing?
We did really well. As a ship, as a unit, we did really well. So yes, a sense of fulfillment is there. The fact that the war was pretty much lost, I find that very sad, but what we did well.
Being in the ship, and particularly being maybe under the ship and around the engine stuff, did you have a sense of what was going on in the war? Did you understand at that time the politics of it and what was happening? And you just said that we were losing the war or that it was lost. Did you feel that at the time, or at the time was it kind of unclear?
It was not really clear because you couldn't believe anybody. I mean, the best source of news was Hanoi Hannah, and she used to play the best music. There was all so much bullshit going on around the place. All you could do is get in there, do your job, and do your best. That was it. Yeah, the politics of it didn't come into it. No, just my motivation were to go and help the Vietnamese people. And incidentally, when I got back to Australia and I was working on a newspaper, the area that I covered was where the Vietnamese refugees came to live, in Cabramatta. The first memorial to Australians who fought in Vietnam was raised by the Vietnamese people in Cabramatta, but you won't hear about it. And when I went, I used to wear my return from active service badge on the jacket I used to wear around. And when I went in there to cover different events, things like the Buddhist temples, things like that, when they saw a return from active service, I was treated very, very well. They were beautiful people, and yeah, they made me feel very, very good. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, that's nice. Because that's kind of in contrast to the way you were treated by your own people, right?
I'm glad I didn't have to say that. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, interesting.
I've had people spit on my car door handles and things like that. Because I had Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
And damn proud of it is the sticker, and I had that on the back of my car. Because we hid it for such a long time. But after the march, when we got together, we were all feeling the same way. We were all feeling, that we'd been put down for what we should not have been put down for. And I think we all developed a bit of an attitude after that march, and it was like, well, yeah, I did go to Vietnam, and if you don't like it, fuck you. So, excuse my language, folks.
Hey, it's what it is.
Sorry, Mum.
Okay, last question. How do you feel differently now than? Why do you feel, or how do you feel differently now about the war than you did when it ended? Was it solely because of the march that changed your perception of that? No. It's my development as a person, and I guess my development from my spirituality. I have a different way of looking at things now that really makes much more sense to me, and I can understand that war has to happen, people have to die, and that not all war is bad. That's it. Well, thank you very much. That's it. Thank you. You're so gracious, and I appreciate you taking time to do this. So, yeah, thank you for sharing.